The 1960s brought drastic problems to the railroads of the Northeast. That infection threatened the entire U.S. rail industry. The center of the disaster was the Penn Central merger of 1968. We'll drop into the Erie Lackawanna briefly and then examine the Penn Central's story. The disappointing performance of the EL merger during the 1960s should have been a warning to dangers facing the 1968 Penn Central merger. Even when the Penn Central merger was approved, the two major merger partners gave every indication of ignoring the lessons. In June 1972, Hurricane Agnes hit the east with destruction that was the costliest of that era. On June 26, 1972, the exhausted EL declared bankruptcy as a result of all the destruction. The 5 roads we reviewed also had one other common problem. The problem was the Penn Central. The Pennsylvania Railroad and the New York Central announced merger intentions in 1957. The merger was approved by 1968. Penn Central's rapid failure and decay of service put all rail shipping in peril in the greater northeastern area. The struggling bridge roads were caught up in this problem since their customers knew that their connections were faulty. The Pennsy was once number 1 ranked of all the U.S. roads, and the New York Central was number 3. Both roads were still solvent when the Penn Central began. But together, they completely failed. These two, together forming Penn Central, sprawled over 13 states, 2 Canadian provinces, and the District of Columbia. It seemed to be a parallel system merger that never delivered the savings of eliminating duplication. The Pennsy was heavily invested in electrified sections in busy areas, hauling speeding passenger trains behind graceful GG1s. Freight was hauled by GG1s and ungainly-looking but powerful E44s. The 66 E44s were good for 4,400 horsepower. They were great freight haulers inspired by the coal-hauling Virginian Railroad's EL-C electrics. These were sold to the New Haven Railroad around 1962. The New Haven Railroad had been bankrupt since 1961, another example of a line with commuter traffic that dominated the scene. The New Haven Railroad was another line awash with commuter trains and sinking into a desperate situation. It had been bankrupt since 1961. It took in over $100 million gross, but it nevertheless lost money every year. Their trackage miles and gross income was twice what the D&H had, but the D&H in 1961 was still making money. The New Haven was forced on the Penn Central merger as a stipulation of their merger. So when the ICC stipulated that the bankrupt New Haven be included in the Penn Central merger of 1968, the EL-C class electric locomotives became Penn Central E33s, as seen here. The Penn Central stuck with the electrics, probably due to the Pennsylvania Railroad's dominant influence over the Penn Central merger. The GG1s were aging. For example, this one was built in the Pensie's own Altoona shops in 1942. By 1971, Amtrak would relieve most all the railroads of the money-losing passenger long-haul business. By the 1980s, Conrail was all diesel. And with that deal, the GG1s were transferred to Amtrak ownership. But the new Conrail system that rescued the bankrupt Penn Central eventually eliminated all electric operation and locomotives. Reviving nearly all of the East's freight system was complicated enough of a task without the extra expense of maintaining the electrified lines. For years you could see lots of Penn Central and other units patched with Conrail or just CR marks, waiting to be repainted in Conrail blue. The Conrail system started out with this track plan. More was added when the old anthracite roads and other bankrupt eastern elements were added. Conrail picked up everything shown here in 1976. The Penn Central group of the New York Central and the Pennsy plus the New Haven, and the leftovers of Lehigh Valley, Erie, Lackawanna, Central New Jersey, Reading, Lehigh and Hudson River, and the Pennsylvania Reading Seashore lines. Below the road names are the bankruptcy dates. Older units, waiting for repaint or sometimes retirement, were seen all over the tracks of these Conrail constituents. After 10 years of struggle and loans from the U.S. government, Conrail turned things around in the Northeast rail scene. For this remarkable story, don't miss our Conrail Hall of Fame presentation. We also review many of the reasons Penn Central failed in Northeast Rails Remembered and the Conrail era Conrail Hall of Fame video. Many other railroads were involved in this subject and will encapsulate them well in a 1 hour and 40-minute epic study. For more information, visit our website at cspmovies.com. And thanks for watching.